do by acknowledging the Ngunnawal people, the traditional owners of the land that I understand probably most of us are on right now in Canberra, and to acknowledge that that land was never ceded. So for our very second last News and Media Research Centre seminar for 2021, we have Dr Temple Uwalaka. And today, Temple is going to be talking about social media and fake news during a global pandemic, an example of COVID-19 in Nigeria. And Temple is a research associate at the News and Media Research Centre and is also a lecturer at the School of Arts and Communication at the University of Canberra. His research interests include digital activism, digital journalism, brand activism, and the use of online and mobile media to influence political change. So it's great. I can see a few more people just joining in. So welcome, everyone. It's great to see you, even if I can only just see your names. So Temple, we've got 30 to 45 minutes for your presentation, and then some time at the end for questions. So I will now hand over to you. Thank you, Temple.
Thank you, Catherine. So can you see my screen clearly? All right. Thank you, Catherine, once again, and thank you everyone for coming in today for my presentation. So the work I'll be presenting today is titled Social Media and Fake News During a Global Pandemic, an example of COVID-19 in Nigeria. Part of this work has actually been published in the Journal of African Media Studies. But this particular version I'm presenting today is the complete version that I'm also trying to publish. So that will be submitting after this. So your comments will be really helpful because it will help me shape it properly for the next submission. Thank you. Let me see if this is working. Okay, excellent. So today we'll look a little bit of introduction of why I'm doing this and what has happened. I praise the literature a little bit, and talk about my research question, methods, findings of the study, and of course, and the implication of the study. In terms of, in early April of 2020, this is one of the reasons that I got into this study. I saw a screaming headlines that went like, "We are not sure of any COVID-19 in Nigeria, UN." So I was like, UN? So I now went underneath the headline. Then what I saw was a brief lead story repeating the facts of the headline, followed by a credit to the website maymages.com, which for me was a red flag immediately. So there's no way anyone will be using this because it's not a newspaper in Nigeria. It's not anything. So I realized like it is issues about misinformation or fake news or click-based stuff. So the story fed into the disinformation surrounding COVID-19 in Nigeria, feeding the erroneous belief that those with black skin were immune to the virus, basically, which is not true. It was a manufactured story to attract clicks from Facebook users in Nigeria. And that actually got me thinking immediately like, oh my goodness, then I need to start looking at the intersectionality between misinformation, disinformation, or fake news, and how people react to the pandemic, basically, because it was at the beginning of the pandemic. In fact, that was a week after they reported the first case in Nigeria. But having said that, generally speaking, disinformation campaigns regarding COVID-19 was in the radar of authorities at the beginning of the pandemic itself. The pandemic was followed by an infodemic of misinformation. That's actually mainly from the World Health Organization in 2020. That was from their report, and Brennan et al. As well. But misinformation about science and health is not new, and neither is it unique to COVID-19, basically. During Ebola, we had a lot of misinformation regarding Ebola. During SARS, during Even, let's be honest, even vaccine we normally would take for flu these days, there's this fake and will I say disinformation around it that it's actually becoming problematic for some persons to actually have the vaccine. But misinformation about science and health, of course, Layato is not new. But there was kind of a noticeable unease about the effect of fake news and fake COVID cures circulating in social media. Like there was that emerged in Nigeria where people were becoming a little bit afraid and surprised as to what will this mean. So these misinformation about the virus have actually fueled the public concerns and have forced governments to encourage citizens to check the veracity of the news stories about the pandemic before sharing them, basically. So before I even talk about the aim, and this is one of the, I looked at all what was going on. I wanted to understand what has really happened now, how it has happened, and that's probably why I said, let me look at this study. They were saying Nigerians or Africans, basically, or people, because when there's Africans, there are white Africans, basically Caucasian. So they said that sub-Saharan Africa, which is more like the dark-toned people, that they wouldn't have COVID, but that is not the case, like we will see in the study. The fulcrum of this study was actually to investigate the impact of fake news headlines on how Nigerians viewed and responded to COVID-19 pandemic in Nigeria. And that was basically what I was trying to achieve in the study. But before going into how I came about my results and stuff like that, I did engage the literature a little bit in early 2020. One of the things I realized was that fake news concept and histories, especially when we talk about the issues about fake news concept on itself, in itself. So fake news, many people there's this unease on using it because they believe that it's too wide, it's not academic enough, or maybe it's not well defined or something like that. But we have noticed a noticeable shift over time of people using it other than just saying misinformation or disinformation. So the concept has evolved as it becomes more widespread and sophisticated. I have to be honest, I think the concept on its own became a little bit more popular when Donald Trump used this as an attack on journalists, where he was using it to really get at them, basically. And that's when he picked up steam. But obviously, fake news has always been there. Like issues about fake news or misinformation has always been there over time, or for a very long time. So fake news has historically been used by researchers to define generic mistruths, such as news parody, propaganda, and even misleading advertisements. Fake news also are more or less like news articles that are intentionally and verifiably false and could mislead readers. That's actually from Alicott and Gensnow. So this particular researcher, even though they were researching from the political point of view in terms of political communication and how people react during political participation and fake news, I used their work a lot because even my survey design was actually picked up from them because of, I feel it connected to what I was actually trying to do. I adopted their survey, then I adapted it for COVID-19 for my test in Nigeria. But Laser et al. Actually talked about it as a fabricated information that mimics new media content in form, but not a news media content in form, but not in organizational process or intent. And that's very important because when we talk about media, the organizational process and intent is the issue of the gatekeeping, the issues about not lying, and all those are some of the things that they were talking about. Of course, we can talk about how others have actually looked at it as that fake news is socially and democratically and problematic as it produces inadequate informed people who then continue to misinform due to impacts of echo chambers. And this is really important in Nigeria because in the case of Nigeria, studies have actually begun to show that why people do what they do is because not from insidious or because of even monetary reasons, but that they do that for other reasons like community sharing, issues about helping others, believing that they were doing things that are good. Of course, many studies are focused on the effects of fake news on political participation. But however, there are increasingly studies have begun to look at how the more difficult aspect of fake news, like in the case of Freya and Kuma, they figure out like fake news have actually led to mob killings in India. Laser actually talked about it, if not that if fake news is not controlled in the long run, that it will catastrophically undermine public trust in real news outlets, and that all this will have a deleterious impact to global governance and health. And of course, like it's almost, this was 2018 study, so you can see what is happening today to know like that's actually true. But there are other forms of fake news, like how fake news has been studied and how it has emerged. So for example, Caroline, which I think Caroline, Sora, G, and Terry, in their study, they actually talked about how consumers perceive sensational or misleading headlines as a type of fake news, which is linked to lower trust in the media. That's from their 2020 study. And even in 2018, during the digital news report, we figured out, like in the case of Australia, that Australians who use on media online are talking about how they have increasingly encountered fake news online, and that was a little bit giving them, it's a little bit kind of nauseous to them, and is reducing their trust in the media. What about fake news and COVID-19? The more people make use of social media to receive COVID-19 related information, the more they perceive and behave in a risky manner regarding the virus. That's actually from how in 2020. What that actually means is that the more people embrace these conspiratorial and the fake news contents, the more they believe that they are that COVID-19 wouldn't get to them, or that that COVID-19 is aroused, used to control people with all the whole issues about conspiracy theory. Lampu actually talked about that the full of invented information on COVID-19 has caused many to think that they could heal the virus with substances. This was also very clear in the case of Apuke and Omar. Apuke and Omar are Nigerian researchers, but I think they are based in the Middle East, where they believe their study was about sharing and looking at all this. And so they believe that people share and use and see that, number one, that the virus do not harm Africans because they believe in herbs. In the case of substances like herbs, like in the case of Nigeria, we have a robust industry about herbal medicine, and that was easy to, so that made it easier for Nigerians to fall prey to fake news based on herbal medicinal kind of approaches, which is not the case in this particular one. But people believe that, oh, we have always been using herbal medicine. It is approved in many parts of Nigeria, so people fell for that. But having said all that, majority of these studies actually evaluated factors that led to the sharing of fake news. However, not much is known about situations and contexts that leads to increased likeliness to believe fake news, or factors that help to point out credible news sources from fake news. This is almost like digital media issue, like a literacy issue. And to test that is actually why I did this study. So this study was actually an attempt to understand factors that help social media users in Nigeria to ascertain the difference between fake news and fake news from real news and real government guidance regarding the pandemic in Nigeria. And that's the only research question that I'm posing today, is like, what are the factors that led Nigerians to believe fake news and fake news headlines about COVID-19 pandemic in Nigeria? So that's the research question that I am working on. So to answer that research question, I conducted an online survey and also did content analysis of Twitter, contents from Twitter. I had 240 respondents. It was an online survey. So for a Nigerian survey, for you online, for you to get 240, that's huge, because Nigerians are very, they lack trust for online stuff, because I don't know if you know of the Nigerian Prince syndrome, where people, this issue of online frauds. So they believe that each link you give to them, that it might have fraudulent mean behind it, no matter the name you're using or something like that. So 254, why not really strong? But in terms of online survey, it's not bad in Nigeria. Of course, I analyzed 10,408 tweets and retweets on Twitter. using that, trying to figure out the themes of the posts, or will I say the tweets in this case. Of course, my analysis, the survey was quantitatively coded using SPSS to actually run my analysis, whereas my that of the tweet was a qualitative actually content analysis, basically, where I use more of thematic analysis using N-Capture and NVivo for theme generation. I use N-Capture because N-Capture, even though it is, will I say, it's paid, is something that I had to pay, proprietary, but it enables the researcher to download it straight to NVivo without too much fuss. And it was for ease of use that I used it. The skip statistics and a bit of a regression analysis and thematic analysis and reporting on tweets and retweets of Nigerian protesters. That's basically how I went about this. For the descriptive statistics, one of the things I would want to highlight here is that male were more than the females. 56% were male and 44% were females. But one key, let's say, factor here that I want you to look out for is the education. So in my research, those who reported to, there was nobody that reported to have year 12 or below education. So it means that this is of respondents were actually highly educated. I had about 12 PhDs, which is 5%, 35% of master's degree holders, 53% of bachelor's degree holders. So these are highly educated, and of course, okay, year 6, so year 12 is the SSCE, which is about 18, but there was nobody that stopped at year 6, so nobody, it's actually a highly educated, let's say, cohorts. Because why I'm saying that is that will tell us if fake news matters, because if people that are diseducated could fall prey for fake news, what would not happen to those who are uneducated or those that has a very low level of education? And in terms of most important source of news about COVID-19, one, I don't know if my colors are, so you will see that social media, 31% was actually the highest. Of course, there was some for cable television. So cable television are mainly international media in Nigeria. That is followed, social media then followed by cable television. So the Nigerian television, national television is Nigerian television stations, of course, radio station, and of course, 2% only for newspaper. And that's huge, in my opinion. That surprised me because, I mean, only 2% reported, and these are highly educated set of cohorts. So why only 2%? That tells me, in fact, I have so many research to prove this anyway, that Nigerians actually don't trust the media. They don't trust mainstream media. They actually trust a little bit of international media outlets like Al Jazeera, CNN, and BBC, compared to like Nigerian television, like NTA, Channels TV, and TV Continental. But obviously, social media is the most important source of news. So I ran my regression. So this is the table, but I want to show you the results. So I ran a standard multiple regression to measure the belief of credible news headlines, referred here as true headlines, as on the interaction among those who record seeing fake news headlines, credible news headlines, and the placebo. So in the case of placebo, the difference between fake headlines and placebo is like fake headlines were the ones that are online already. Someone has put it there, and I was testing them on that. Whereas the placebo were the ones I forged. So I forged, it's almost like I added those ones. Those ones are also fake news, but in the sense that I was using it in my survey to control for issues about recall, false recall, to know if those who participated in my participants could tell the difference between what they have seen online and what does not exist anywhere. And that was important in the study. So my findings actually showed that respondents who reportedly record seeing credible COVID-19 news headlines are more likely to believe credible news headlines about COVID-19. So they will believe. The difference between recall and believe. So also those who pointed out that the placebo news headlines were fake or forged news headlines are more likely to believe credible news headlines relating to COVID-19, straightforward stuff. However, those who reported social media as their most important source of news. And those who reportedly believed the plausible news headlines, as well as those who believed fake news headlines, are less likely to believe credible news headlines regarding COVID-19. So when they see even the real news headlines, they could not notice it. There's no difference. So they cannot, they have a less ability to do that. And that is very important, because if you don't know the difference between the real news and fake news, how can you now know when government officials are actually telling you the right thing? Or how can you believe the message coming from people in government? And these are some of the things that really matters in this kind of research. But in terms of my tweets and my tweet analysis, this is where the new data set in this particular study, this is where it matters. I was looking at the sample tweets and their frequency. So in one breath, there are about so many, like we had people providing information about COVID-19 online. Then we had followed immediately by those who are providing this information about COVID-19 on Twitter. And of course, there are also those who we are pointing out hypocrisy of those in government. And having studied this over time, and with my knowledge and what I've seen over time, I feel that the biggest challenge, if anybody will want to tell those in government, is that the biggest challenge we had about COVID-19 is not the issue of misinformation based on social media, as everybody is shouting sometimes. The biggest challenge we had is actually the hypocrisy of not just Nigerian leaders, because in the case of Australia, for example, you look at someone like Dan Andrews in Victoria, he put in this hard lockdown, he still failed his own lockdown policies that they actually fined him. You go to America, Nancy Pelosi had the same problem. You go to California, the Governor Newsom actually had the same problem. Almost every single leader in the world that was actually talking about or helping or harping on lockdown and how we need to be careful about COVID-19 would actually do something that is almost directly opposite to what they were saying. I mean, in the case of Nigeria, it made people believe that we are not serious. In fact, it made people believe that we are lying. It killed their credibility and the ability for people to believe what was coming from the podium of maybe the presidential podium or those in the presidential task force in Nigeria. And this is what fed into this increased level of fake news. People believing in conspiracy theories, believing that they are just using it to control them. I mean, let's be honest. If someone is asking you to sit while the person is standing, how can you believe the person that sitting is the position to be? And that's actually what happened. But let me share a little bit more into this. So 30%, about 3,122 of the tweets and retweets analyzed provided information about the pandemic to Twitter users in Nigeria. So this information ranged from safety counsel regarding how to safeguard oneself from COVID-19 to statistics regarding the fatalities from COVID-19. Of course, like an example of one of the tweets is like someone said, yes, pray very hard, but also take precautions. So it's almost like telling them, don't just use prayer or religious belief without actually following the policies. Another one tweeted, I won't be visiting anyone, and please do not visit me for now. Stay home, stay safe. And this was at the thick of COVID lockdown in Nigeria. Another one actually tweeted, another user tweeted, what innovative ways can we adopt to reduce communal spread of COVID-19? If you go to this thread, like people we are giving examples, telling them what to do. Medical doctors there, we are telling them, look, I am a virologist. Look at what you need to do. This was I'm a medical doctor in US, but in Nigeria, this is what you need to do and stuff like that. So people, we are actually providing information and seeking information in this area. About 22% of the tweets that I analyzed actually pushed a disinformation regarding the pandemic. If you notice, it's very close. 30% and 22%, they are very close. It's huge. In the case of Nigeria, 22% is actually huge for those who are online. It's actually a good thing that my respondents were educated, but or not for this, but in the other one. But if you look at it, that is not the way it is in Nigeria. in Nigeria, there are more people that are uneducated than those who are educated. And Nigeria is about a country of 200 million people. So that's huge. These tweets denied the existence of the virus, underplayed its seriousness, and introduced the fake cures, basically. So there's one. They said one of the users actually tweeted, Abba Kanyari did not die of coronavirus. So Abba Kanyari was actually the chief of staff of the president of Nigeria. He died of coronavirus. But when he died, people did not believe that he died of coronavirus. And I would explain why in a little while. But that is a fake news and something that people that showed this sign of people not taking it seriously. Because if the chief of staff of the president has died of coronavirus, without misinformation, that would tell people to take it seriously. So people can now begin to understand why it is important for them to follow the leads and follow the information that they need to follow about COVID-19. But that's not what happened. Of course, they talked about this. Another one tweeted, this clearly shows that Abba Kanyari did not die of COVID-19. It was a cover-up to hide his real ailment. Others tweeted, since people know this is actually Nigerian English, right? So I'll read it and interpret it. So it says, since people know they send NCDC and their life score again. So what it's actually talking about that people were not listening to Nigerian Center of Disease Control anymore, and their life score. So they likened the statistics about number of cases and deaths and fatalities, all those cases, they almost like likened it to like watching a football match. Like it's almost like fake. When they say life score in this case, it's almost like a euphemism for like that they're fake numbers. Virtually all recorded cases are deemed asymptomatic. It's all looking like a scam. So there is this, breeding or coming up with sly misinformation about it and almost like undermining the seriousness of COVID-19. This particular user is insinuating that the severity of the pandemic may have been exaggerated or that it might not even be in existence. And that's basically what the user was actually trying to do, which for me, I believe was a very disturbing thing to do. About 18% of the tweets I analyzed raised alarm about the hypocrisy of those in leadership. For me, this is actually a major, because if you look at those who were talking about the misinformation is technically derived from the hypocrisy part of things. Because one of the things that they were talking about, this shows, it was when Abba Kanyari died, what happened in his funeral. And that is, I will show that a little bit in a little while. So social distancing top notch. Nigeria is a joke, I beg. So many people shifted weddings, burial ceremonies due to lockdown and social distancing, yet our leaders are not leading by example. And that is very, very crucial. And having watched COVID for the entirety of so far, I think that this sentiment from this Twitter user, for me, is actually the most important sentiment in this COVID everywhere. Every single leader that I know, many of them, they will preach one thing and they will do another. There's so much you can actually ask people to do when you're not doing what you're preaching. They will say we have face masks. Then when the camera is off, the person's face mask is off as well. So we now, that hypocrisy, basically, the idea of not doing what you're asked to do, you preach what you cannot actually uphold. It's almost like telling people to follow your words, but not your actions. And as parents and people that know anything about, especially in the case of African culture, it is very crucial that people actually take these things, issues about your actions seriously, because people will learn from the leaders and from anybody more than from your action than what you have ever said. Whoever is enforcing the lockdown in Lagos State must be thinking with the sole of their feet, basically, like almost like they are not thinking correctly. And that is very almost showing that Lagos, even though they were in a lockdown, they were not in a lockdown. The government officials were driving their siren jeeps around in a poor neighborhood, whereas people were busy suffering, being in lockdown, not even like in Australia where they give people a little bit of palliative care, but people were in a lockdown with hunger, and people in government were just doing anyhow. And that's one of the things, it's one of the things that break that level of seriousness. disinformation and fake news. This, what you're seeing here is at the peak of COVID-19 lockdown in Nigeria. At this time in Nigeria, anybody that died would have been buried. I mean, you guys, I don't know, you may not know Nigeria. So Nigerians actually have this elaborate kind of funerals. You shouldn't bury them. If someone dies of COVID, like this person that they are burying, can you hear me? Okay, like this person that they are burying, it shows, like this is Abba Kanyari's funeral. Number one, Abba Kanyari is a Muslim. Muslims in Nigeria don't bury in an elaborate manner. He's not even in the South, so he's a Northerner. But even though he's a Muslim, I mean, you can see how many persons were here. But any other person that died within this period was actually buried without almost a grave. They just bury them in a place where they don't even tell people, maybe 4 persons will be there. Burying the person, that's when they are giving the mass burial. Whereas Abba Kanyari was there with full-on people. And this was what made people to believe that COVID-19 is unreal, it's not real in Nigeria, or if it's even real anywhere. And this is the hypocrisy I was talking about. He was the chief of staff of the president, and they were burying him. I mean, they put in the policies, and yet they flaunted their politics. And this was what really caused the problems of will I say, fake news exploded after this particular funeral. And this funeral was in July of 2020. And that was really, for me, so it's kind of a bad sign. Of course, 10% of the tweets were fact checks and tweets debunking either a misleading tweet or outright disinformation from the ones I analyzed. In fact, there were these fact checkers all over. If anybody tweets something that they feel was a misinformation, they will give them links, especially that of WHO and America, especially Dr. Fauci was very popular in Nigeria for some reason. So they were always tweeting about what Dr. Fauci, the virologist in America, what he was saying, how this mattered and stuff like that. But in the case of even the fake, let's say disinformation part of it as well, the lack of straightforward discussion about COVID from the beginning, where initially it was wear mask, don't wear mask and stuff like that, also played into disinformation. So why 20% of the tweets were for other different topics, such as lamentations about hunger due to lockdowns, lack of transportations, mishandling of essential services, corruption, lack of palliative measures, and so forth in Nigeria. So, I mean, one of the tweets read like the news circulating of COVID-19. This is more of the fact-checking. Confirmed cases in Apple. So Apple is where the House senators, Nigerian national senate, like our senators, where their residence, official residence is called Apple in Abuja, is false. For 2 weeks, individuals have edited our graphics, used them to announce cases and to spread panic. Please disregard and follow our contact details for updates. Every new case confirmed is announced accordingly. This is actually a tweet that was put up to debunk a conspiracy and a false news or false alarm, talking about how senators were all enjoying not quarantining, even though they were found that they were COVID positive. Whereas every other person, if the person is not a senator or a House of Representative member, that they will actually be quarantining in a very secluded area. So these are like some of the tweets in terms of how it looked like. Some of them will look like in Nigeria. Of course, like this, yes, pray very hard, but also take precautions. And you see some other was talking about how processes of people covering their, why they need to cover their nose and how it will work. There are also tweets, people are actually screen grabbing the NCDC's their statistics about COVID and posting it online as well for people to see. So what are the implications? Okay, so what are the implications? Findings demonstrate the pervasiveness and the seriousness of the impact of fake news on social media in Nigeria. Because, for example, like the study showed that those who use social media a lot, like those whose social media is actually their most source of news believed fake news. And that is very important and also very common sense, because in Nigeria, the study of Apuke and Oma have shown that Nigerians share a lot online. So when they share a lot, not because that they want to share for monetary purposes, they share because for them, they believe that it is a communal stuff to do. So how will I put it? Facebook plays into the African cultural and tradition of sharing, the culture of not just knowing, the issues about the Ubuntu culture, where in the case of Ubuntu, for those of you that don't know, is the issues about where they see your humanity in another person's humanity. What it means is that for you to be successful, that the whole community, if your friend, your cousins, the relatives and the community people needs to also be successful for you to be truly successful. What it means that you cannot just grow alone. You cannot, it's not capitalist in nature. You cannot just grow alone and be the best. No, you are not the best. It's almost like you are as poor as your place. So Ubuntu culture expresses the belief that I am because that you are. I am because that you are also living. So if I know one thing, I want another person to know that stuff, not because I'm trying to control them, not because I want to be very popular, not because of anything, just because I believe in the culture says that they believe that it is the right thing to do. It is the human thing to do, to ensure that your brother, your sister also will have the same level of knowledge that you have, that the information that you believe that you have received that may save lives, even though it's fake news, that you need to share it in order to others so that they will actually learn more from that stuff and probably understand what you are telling them. And those level of engagement and sharing culture is what actually exacerbates fake news, will I say, dissemination in countries, in many African countries. In fact, studies are beginning to show that the biggest problem in terms of fake news sharing is actually WhatsApp, where groups where people love themselves, where people know themselves by using their mobile number, they actually share more of fake news. So when you receive fake news from someone that you know, you are more likely to believe it. And there are studies coming up that that are reporting on this, especially in the case of Africans in diaspora. Okay, so it causes people not to trust official guidelines. And one of the implications is actually that fake news causes people not to trust official guidelines. And when people don't trust official guidelines, they fall sick, they may die of COVID, they may have very serious injuries that will actually be part of them forever, or almost until probably in a long time. And those are some of the things that are important and things that people should be looking into. Fake news about the virus, and of course, leads Nigerians to reject adhering to the safety procedures put in place by the Nigerian government. And when that happens, obviously, that exacerbates. And because of what happened within this period, Nigeria actually had a second wave of COVID where more people are dying, and more people died, but I think it has receded a bit now. So more people died in the second wave compared to the first wave. And the reason was just simply because of people's misinformation based and of course nonchalance based on how Nigerian government actually worked. Such social media induced fake news recalcitrant behavior may be injurious to such people. That's basically the point I'm making, that such recalcitrant behavior might be injurious to the people. And this has been borne out by results. So there's a recent study has actually shown that fake news shared on social media regarding this pandemic has led to death and even serious injuries to some people in other countries. And this is mainly, this study was meant for Vietnam. So it has already a result out there showing that people are dying based on their recalcitrant, let's say, not following official government guidelines. This finding is important as it is crucial to devise a means of ameliorating the problem of fake news about COVID-19 and to reduce the gratifying effects of excessive fake news sharing and exposure in social media platforms. I am recommending, which is some of the things I'm actually talking to some people in government in Nigeria, where I'm recommending for them to actually increase issues about digital media literacy. Imagine how much people believed fake news in a cohort that is this educated, so many PhDs, so many master's degree holders, so many bachelor's degree holders, and yet they could easily fall into this type of fake news echo chamber and unabashedly embraced it. So this is some of the things that maybe in Nigeria, I'm talking to some persons, that they need to actually start looking at issues about digital media literacy and to disabuse people's mind or probably reorient them about issues about the Ubuntu culture that I mentioned earlier, where not everything that you share is shared. When you share those things, doesn't mean that it will help the person that you are giving it to, which is the whole essence of Ubuntu. So you might be conducting something that you think is Ubuntu in this sense that may not be Ubuntu, and that's a problem for the National Orientation Agency in Nigeria. So the major practical implication of this study is that ease of use and distrust of traditional media led users to expose themselves and believing in fake news and fake news, which obviously has its own problems. And this was laid bare with the 32% of respondents reporting using newspaper as their main source of news. And I feel that that's actually troubling. I mean, imagine a cohort, a responding cohort of highly educated people, and they are reporting that they had only 2%, will I say, reporting newspaper being their main source of news. Because in the case of Nigeria, the television stations are owned by government and their friends, and government officials and their friends. So newspapers are actually a little bit where we feel that we might have a lot of objective reportage. So if only 2% only believe in newspaper, then we're in trouble as a country in Nigeria. And that is what I am alluding to here, that trajectory actually needs to change, because without that trajectory changing, how can people understand what has happened? And this is where Nigerian government, I am telling them, needs to improve the education system, especially the digital education system, because I don't know if you know this, Nigeria has the highest number of online content creation in the whole world, more than America. In fact, right now in Nigeria, digital media is raking in millions for people through content creation and content creators in Nigeria. So they need to increase people's education and digital media literacy in this regard to help them, arm people with the needed guardrails that will help them understand when they see a fake news, the difference between fake news, maybe parody and propaganda or any other thing. And that's some of the things that I believe that the Nigerian leaders need to do. One other thing before I finish that they need to do is that Nigerian leaders should also do what they preach. Not just Nigerian leaders, I think leaders everywhere should actually do what they preach, because sometimes their attitude and their behavior, will I say their body language of it's not, I can say, do as I say, but not what I do, increases the chance of people mistrusting them and increasing them into embracing conspiracy theory and fake news. I believe that if they could, that if Nigerian government did not show, will I say, this inept, this arrogance of doing stuff that they have asked people not to do, maybe fewer persons may have been saved in Nigeria compared to what they did now. And that is why I believe that this study is important. Thank you for listening. If you have any question, I am open to a question for now.
Thank you very much, Temple. That was really, really interesting. And so we've now got 15 minutes for questions. So Matthew, would you like to ask a question?
Yeah, sorry, I missed the beginning. So I had a deadline that I had to deal with. I'm sorry. So I didn't get all your methods. So I guess got two questions. I'm just going to put my hand down, sorry. So the first one, I guess you collected data from Twitter, or so. What was your data source, sorry?
It was Twitter.
Twitter, okay. So you collected it automatically?
Yes.
Okay, and then you checked manually to see the content?
Yes, I checked, yes, yeah. Using NVivo, so I download to NVivo and check manually.
Okay, yeah, because I think that's really important to stress that, because we've done research with Kate and Chalan and Irfan on misinformation about COVID, and it's really important because a lot of time people are actually debunking, right? So I guess the first question is, what proportion of tweets were promoting versus debunking? And then the second question is, you know, we've seen examples of foreign influence agents trying to sow division in society, in some cases by connecting social issues to divisions such as ethnic or religious divisions. Is that something that you felt maybe was happening, or maybe not even foreign agents, but just people who want to cause trouble and sow division, and so they're connecting this issue to other issues that are divisive? Is that something that you saw?
Yes, I will take the first question. Thank you, Matthew. The first question is that the debunking was slightly less than those who were. It was just it was 20% of the tweets, and those who are debunking is about 18%, if I'm not mistaken. So it was 22-18, which is very even. It's almost like getting to even in that regard. But I was actually joyous with the fact that people were actually debunking those things, debunking it, because probably that's why it helped a little bit than just everybody going into the deep end. But in terms of showing division, it's more or less like the only division I saw was the Biafra. I don't know if you know Nigeria, the Biafran system, where there are those who believe in the Igbos, basically. It's actually my ethnic group. So the Igbos, there's this guy in UK, he's a UK citizen, but he always goes to Israel. So it's almost like there's a machinery from Israel, right? Because he believed that for some reason, that he is Jewish, that Igbos migrated from Jewish stuff, and they were against the Nigerian government of Buhari, who is actually a Fulani man. So there is that tension between the Igbos and the Fulanis, and they tried to play that. I don't know if there was any clear foreign influence in that regard, but I think until Joe Biden won the election, the Democrats in America were actually pushing with the Igbos, like the indigenous people of Biafra. It was after he won the election probably that he now embraced Buhari, basically. So I don't know what that meant, but there was a little bit from America pushing towards that. And conservatives in America as well, like evangelical Christians in America, we are pushing misinformation in Nigeria, especially using some African doctors. I don't know if you didn't know the lady that talked about. She's a Cameroonian, studied in Nigeria, but she's in America, in Texas. So they use people like that and some other Nigerians. So the evangelical community in America, we are full on pushing for misinformation about COVID in Nigeria. And the churches, evangelicals in Nigeria, like especially Pentecostal churches in Nigeria, they fell foul of social media guidelines so many times because of misinformation.
Okay, so, sorry, that's really interesting, because I see that evangelicals in the United States are actually taking on QAnon really a lot, because they're getting that from social media and then they want it from their churches. Is that happening in Nigeria as well? Or?
Yes, it's happening actually, yes.
Yes.
So some of the QAnon messages that I got in my tweets when I was analyzing it, it's actually, it originated from evangelical Christians in America, basically. Okay. And
so, sorry, but just when you said 2218, was that 22 number of tweets, or is it a percentage?
No, the percentage.
So what's the rest then? 22 debunking, 18.4, what's the rest?
Also, those who are just providing information is about 30% of the tweets, providing information generally about statistics about COVID.
Also factual information.
Factual information.
Okay, so that still leaves.
And there was others also lamenting about the hypocrisy of Nigerian government.
Okay. All right. Sorry, I think there's another question. Sorry. Thank you so much.
All right, no problem.
Lan has her hand up.
Yes, and it's like some following up questions. So I noticed there is like tweets follow into like others. So I'm wondering the population of the tweets you connected, is that also connected featuring with hashtags or some terms about COVID-19 related things, or just time slap in like in a time period?
Yes, so I collected this within it was real time, but over a period of time. And I used 2 hashtags, but there might be other hashtags about COVID. I used them COVID-19 Nigeria and coronavirus Nigeria hashtags. And that's where I collected my data set from. But I believe that there are other hashtags about this incident, but these were the first 2 hashtags that trended in Nigeria, and that was why I started collecting from those 2.
Thank you. And the other thing is, I noticed in the pie chart, there is a separate one, like apps. So what do you mean by apps?
So apps and apps were things like mobile social networking apps like WhatsApp, like in Nigeria, Eskimi, Tugo, like there are so many apps in Nigeria. So I decided to place all of them in that particular app so that, I mean, I don't have, it's just to reduce the number basically.
So it's like something like messenger apps.
Yes, messenger apps in Nigeria.
Okay, thank you.
No, it's all right. Thanks.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Okay. Any other one?
Irfan.
Thanks for this. Like, it's a very interesting research, and I can actually relate to the findings. Like, because I come from Bangladesh and I have seen same thing happening in our country as well in terms of how misinformation is spread. I have one question regarding to what extent your research actually captures the essence in terms of the way misinformation spreads in a developing country like Nigeria, right? Yeah. In Bangladesh, like for example, what we have seen is Twitter is there as an official communication channel, but misinformation spreads more through WhatsApp, private WhatsApp groups, and which is almost impossible for us to keep track of. And I think that's like that is actually a major problem in Bangladesh, like where we see that you cannot track the communication that is happening within private WhatsApp group. And that's where basically most of the misinformation is spreading. So do you have any suggestion?
Yes, thank you very much for that question, Khan. Absolutely. I don't have a solution, but you're absolutely right. I wanted to study WhatsApp because I belong to so many groups. I believe that WhatsApp is, for me, that is the host of misinformation in the world, especially for migrant communities and even people in Nigeria. But it's so close group that there's no way we can study them. I don't know if there's any other way people can study. I don't know, Matthew. Matthew is very good enough on these things. So I don't know. I am struggling because I believe that WhatsApp is a bigger offender in this case. In fact, Twitter is more, it's fake news light compared to Facebook. And I'm studying the Facebook part of it now because I will include the Facebook data set before I will not publish the paper. But for WhatsApp, I don't know how to actually study WhatsApp.
Is WhatsApp the one that was responsible for the riots and the killings in India a couple of years ago? There was a lot of spreading of rumors against communities and people actually got killed. That was on WhatsApp, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's the closed nature of Facebook. They don't allow people access to their data sets. And there's a lot of discussion in Australia, you know, around regulation of social media and making them, you know, release information about what exposure people have had to misinformation, misinformed items before they were removed, you know, that sort of thing. But that would only, I mean, you know, the traditional problem, of course, is it's transnational, and so it's very difficult to regulate. But I think you know, there is some concern in Australia, but WhatsApp is even more complicated because, as you say, it's not an open platform at all, and you know, I guess there could be some filtering. I mean, you know, there could be some accounts that are known to be spreading misinformation, and you could have some sort of auto ban on anything that comes from something like that. But you know, it would involve having a good faith conversation with the firm, and they're just not a good faith. You know, we saw the revelations is that anger drives engagement, so they favor polarizing content. That's it. You know, so it's a you know, it's a big problem.
Yeah, it's actually a big
Obviously.
problem.
I mean, I'm just stating the obvious. Everybody knows this. So.
Yeah, because we keep focusing on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube, but they are much more regulated in terms than what WhatsApp is doing. So yeah, real worry.
Maybe the only way anyone can study WhatsApp is if anyone gets into a group, maybe a particular group that you want to study, can join the WhatsApp group, then you can study from there. But as for, of course, like Matthew said, the inscription, like it's kind of an end-to-end inscription for WhatsApp. So it's so difficult to study. But I believe actually that we need to look into that because that is where, based on what I receive from Nigerian community and other groups I belong to on WhatsApp, that is where the misinformation is actually spread the most, in my opinion.
I mean, what you're saying, it sounds great, but you can't do that unless you get consent from the members, and that would be that would chill possibly debate. It would change the discourse in the group if they know they're being observed.
Exactly.
I mean, we had a presentation a few months ago, Kat, by Ariel Bogle, which was about sourcing the financial aspects of misinformation and people who spread, because a lot of it is not just about ideology, but it's also just about making money. And that's actually a really good avenue, I think, is to attack it from that side, like this, to remove the incentive structure, which allows these disinforming agents to make money, and because then they'll have less incentive to spread rubbish than if they can make money. So that, I think that's a possible, and that you can regulate that more easily as well because of the tools that there are. But it's an emerging kind of issue, obviously.
Thank you, Maria.
We've got a couple of minutes if anyone has a final question. Maybe I'll just ask us, it's probably not a super quick one, Temple, but maybe you can give me a quickish answer. I mean, obviously this issue of misinformation during COVID is something that is being it's a global thing. We've seen the digital news report and the research being undertaken by the centre looking at these sorts of issues. We know it's an issue in other countries. Is there anything sort of, and you may have touched on some of these, unique to Nigeria compared to the way misinformation and disinformation spreads throughout, say, Australia or other countries?
Yes, actually, thank you, Kat. The unique thing I noticed based on my studies so far is that in the case of Australia, you have influencers. I mean, people still do that in Nigeria, but who are making money, or maybe those who want clicks or something like that. In the case of Nigeria, it's purely sometimes help. They think that they are helping to spread. And that's actually the study of Opuke and Oma, which is people are cited in that side. They believe that their study showed that Nigerians, because of the culture of Ubuntu, where they believe that they have to grow together. So if you learn, you need to teach. So it is that teaching that is exacerbating this fake news in Nigeria. And it's a lot more. If people complain in Australia that there's fake news, there's no fake news in Australia. I can tell you because there's so much in Nigeria. And it's almost like if someone, if I post something that is incorrect, like fake news, so many persons will believe it because they believe I'm educated or something like that. And that is the problem. And that is, well, I said, the noticeable difference between Nigeria, maybe America and the UK and Australia, where in Australia, you don't do it because you're helping. I'm not sure, anyway, that you're helping people. It's just more like, it's almost like communal stuff. Facebook plays into the communal living condition and the communal beliefs of sub-Saharan Africans. And the sharing aspect of faith is what matters. And that's why issues about fake news I believe, is more insidious in this area and spreads faster than actually in the West.
Thank you. That was a great and very timely answer as well, because it is now 1:30. So if everyone can join me in a virtual clap icon, thanking Temple.
Thank you.
thanking Temple for that really interesting presentation today, and then hope that everyone can join us again in, I think, 2 weeks, I believe, for Matthew's presentation, which will be our very final seminar for the year. Thanks, everyone. Stay dry. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Kat. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.